I'm pleased that the Senate is considering Rachel Brand to be Associate Attorney General. Ms. Brand is a native Iowan, and I'm proud to be supporting her nomination here today. She has had a distinguished legal career. In fact, she was appointed to Senate-confirmed positions by both President Bush and President Obama. And both times, she was confirmed by a voice vote in the United States Senate. So here it looks like it somehow has become controversial that I don't understand. Ms. Brand has a broad range of legal experience. And that happens to be a broad range in both government and the private sector. With her previous positions in the White House, the Office of Legal Counsel, and the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, she has experience that touches almost every part of the federal government. As the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Policy, she was a member of the senior management team of the Department of Justice, working with components and law enforcement agencies throughout the entire Justice Department. Similarly, at the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, Ms. Brand worked with diverse agencies to ensure that privacy and civil liberties are taken into account while carrying out the important missions of protecting the nation from terrorism. And during Ms. Brand's tenure in the private sector, she gained extensive litigation management experience that will serve her very well as she oversees the department's civil litigation components. Now, I said she has seemingly become a little more controversial, so that we have to have this effort to stop debate so that we can get her confirmed. So many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have said that they aren't supporting her nomination because of the work she did with the United States Chamber of Commerce. Now, how utterly ridiculous those views are, and I want to explain why. In other words, why she should not be treated the way she is just because she worked for the United States Chamber of Commerce. So I'll take a minute to address these concerns. First, when she worked at the Chamber, all of her advocacy was done to represent the views of her clients. That was the U.S. Chamber. And everybody expects if you hire a lawyer, they're going to represent your views. We all know that we can't assume an attorney personally believes in what they're advocating for on behalf of their client, just as we know criminal defense attorneys don't believe everything that the criminal that's before the judge has done. Furthermore, she was not involved in any policy or lobbying apparatus at the Chamber. Her role there was to bring lawsuits challenging rules that the U.S. Chamber believed were unlawful. And at the same time, besides just arguing those lawsuits, she had to file a lot of amicus briefs, providing the courts with the views of the business community. During her time at the Chamber, she challenged a handful of the thousands of regulations promulgated by federal agencies. The arguments that Ms. Brand made in those lawsuits or amicus briefs were generally that the agency had acted beyond the scope of the authority that Congress had granted that particular agency, or had failed to follow the reasoned decision-making processes required by the Administrative Procedures Act of 1946. In many of these cases, the court agreed with the chamber that the government had acted unlawfully. So, to summarize her work at the chamber, during that time at the chamber, Ms. Brand argued that government agencies went beyond the authority that Congress had given them. She also argued that these agencies weren't acting under the scope of the congressional authority granted to the agency, and she argued that congressional authority had to be respected. Now, pretty simple. Seems to me it's up to Congress to give these agencies more authority if we think they need it, but it's not a good reason to vote against Ms. Brand's nomination, because she argued a very common sense and constitutional position that federal agencies need to follow the laws of Congress. Finally, some senators have maintained that they're concerned about her views on the Voting Rights Act. She responded very well to that, because during her hearing, Ms. Brand told the committee that she shares concerns for anyone that would violate the Voting Rights Act and would suppress votes in the process of violating that act. And she believes, quote, enforcement of that statute to be a core enforcement function of the Civil Rights Division, end of quote. I don't know about my fellow colleagues, but I take her at her word that she strongly believes in voting rights. It's more than a little puzzling, then, that when Republicans opposed a woman for a government position, we heard from the other side the Democrats always bringing up gender politics. But when they oppose a woman for a position, that's somehow okay. Now, I don't see how they can expect to have it both ways. I believe Ms. Brand will be a superb Associate Attorney General, the first female in this role, I might add, and that she will serve the office with very great distinction. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting her nomination.